Hello lovelies, welcome to Chaotic Neutral Life Classes. I am Payak and today's class subject is about budgeting. Now, we're going to strictly stick to budgeting in this class today, and I'll do another class on the subject of savings. I personally didn't learn much about how to budget or how to stick to a budget before I turned 18. So I'm hoping that this helps a few people who might be struggling to still have money at the end of the month, or are struggling to figure out what they need to prioritize. Which, writing out a physical budget, whether you put that in like the notes on your phone or physically write it down, helps you be able to like visually see it better. On what's more of like a monthly budget, or breaking the budget in half if you get paid twice a month, stuff like that. Which, if you get paid twice a month, you can break your budgets down into what needs to be done at the start of the month and what can wait. And no matter which way you get paid, I personally only get paid once a month, and that's at the very start of the month. There are things you should allot, like an X amount every month for things like rent, your mortgage, your phone bill, things like that. And then there are things that if you do have a little bit of extra, and I'm talking about more than just like coffee money, things that you should save a little bit up for, and that would be like a mini emergency fund, or putting an extra like $10 away for the winter utilities and such. I'm in Canada, so our utilities fluctuate quite a bit from the summer to the winter, for context. So I break down expenses and the budget into 4 categories. Category 1 is your monthly expenses. These are things that have to get paid every month, which that category itself can be broken into 2, depending on if you get paid once or twice a month. So monthly expenses, if you get paid twice a month, you could break that down into the mortgage and the rent, the utilities, and then on your second paycheck you could do the bills, or you could also like break your groceries into 2 sections so that you have less food waste. I don't know if this is going to show up on camera, but I did a very simplified version of a budget. Category 2 is necessities. So these are things that need to, again, be paid every month, but they don't have a fixed price like rent does. So these would be like your groceries, pet supplies, hygiene, care, stuff like that, and things like medical expenses. Again, I mentioned I'm in Canada, and I do have medical insurance, but not everything's covered. And currently I have between $70 and $150 worth of out-of-pocket medical expenses every month that my insurance just won't cover, but I need in order to function. But I will digress. The third category is debts. So these are things that we need to work on paying off, but we do so as we can. So for me, because if I have debt collectors or like student loan, for example, they have to take into consideration how much you get paid. Some of these do the annual thing. Some of them will look at your monthly pay stub. And for a lot of mine, because I am on government disability, I'm not eligible to currently pay student loan. That is an entirely different subject. I will go into taxes and student loan again in a different class. But these are things where you can usually make agreements with the companies in question to pay a minimum every month if you can, or just pay as you can. Pay a little bit extra when you can, and then just have that baseline, if that makes sense. And category 4 is not an expense, but I think they're called assets if you're talking about accounting. This would be the money left over if you have any at the end of the month. Pending on the amount. So you have like less than 10, more than 50, like, there's a wide range, right? I think some of us feel really excited when we have an extra 50, or really anxious because we feel like we haven't paid something. I feel ya. So when you have what we call leftovers, if it's a small amount, you could always just add it to a coffee fund or like a luxury fund. Let's face it, we all live in a capitalistic world, and even poor people deserve to indulge in things, to have things that bring them joy, which is why I said luxury in quotes. Call it a coffee and joy fund, if you will, and just throw it in a jar. Sometimes seeing physical money helps people, so you could also do a binder of monthly expenses if that helps, instead of just doing like a note on your phone and keeping track of it there and in your bank, on your bank online banking. Other things you could do every month if you have a bit of extra, you could invest it into an RRSP, and I will go into more detail on that in the savings video. You could also just put the little bit of extra money you have into a basic savings account and save it for like the rainy day fund, like an emergency fund, or save it for like what I was talking about, the utility hikes and stuff like that, or, you know, extra for groceries. Like, just put it away, right? But again, there's nothing wrong with indulging a little bit. Like I said, poor people also deserve to have luxuries, to have things that bring them joy. That 1 or 2 cups of coffee you buy from Tim Hortons or McDonald's a month is not a bad thing. I don't know the actual amount brackets. I know that according to Canada, I somehow live in comfortably poor. Like, there's what Canada classifies as dirt poor, there's comfortably poor, there's working class poor, there's middle class, and then there's rich and eat the rich. And I don't know the actual amounts. I know that federally I am not poor, but provincially I am poor, which is just because I live in a metropolis, which in Canada is just the larger cities per province. The city I currently live in has more people than the province I was born in, which kind of terrifies me, but I digress. I'm going to try and hold this up in a way that it's eligible. So when you go to write this out, whichever way you do it, if you're going to do a binder, you have your monthly expenses, which should include mortgage or rent if you pay that, and utilities if you pay that. Sometimes those are included in your rent. And then it should include the bills that you should be paying monthly, unless you have a different type of contract. But this could be your phone bill, your internet bill, like car payments, or if you need a bus pass every month, things like that. And then you have your necessities, which again are the ones that do not have a set rate. I know most utilities don't have a set rate, but I put them in this because it's usually something you have to pay at the start of the month. Necessities you could probably get away with if you have a second paycheck, paying it with the second paycheck, or splitting in half. Like, I put groceries here because it doesn't have usually a set price. Necessities could also include medical expenses, out of pocket. Under medical expenses, I am going to add anything that is therapeutic. That could mean literal therapy, that could mean massage therapy, that could mean getting your nails done because it brings you joy and you find the place, or your hair, and it's therapeutic to you. I know most people wouldn't call some of those a necessity, but for some of us, it might be. Then we have, I wrote it really small because paper. Then we have debts. This is after you pay all the monthly things, or if you have a second paycheck, you know that you can allot these to the second paycheck. Debts are something you can put on a sliding scale yourself, and if you can't pay 1 month, don't feel bad about that. If you don't have some leftovers, don't feel bad about that. It sucks when we don't have leftovers. It sucks when we end up in the negative. Don't feel bad about that. If you want to put bank fees under debt, I feel like that's valid, because having to pay to have our money electronically, because that's how everything works, just, it feels like a scam. But debts, put it on a sliding scale. Don't feel bad if you can't do it 1 month. If you can pay a little extra 1 month and you can't the other, that's also fine. Keeping this in line, especially when you have a head like me that's really foggy and feels like somebody's playing snakes and ladders, keeping this all in my brain doesn't work. And then if you have leftovers, which we'll talk about leftovers and savings probably in the next episode, in the next class, just little things you could do with them. Honestly, if it's just a small amount, put it in a jar for coffee, whatever brings you a little bit of happiness. Yeah, so that's why I have quotation marks again with luxury. I think we should just change the word luxury to joy, like coffee and joy fund. Write that on a jar. I'm not going to go into what all this means, but if you have, you could always split your leftovers into a savings account and into a coffee jar. If you have a lot of extra and it's not making you anxious, you've double checked this, you didn't miss anything, I would recommend getting the RRSP. And just a reminder not to stress. It is not your fault. Your paycheck is not your fault. And I hope that this is more help for you than stressful. It just helps, like, create a checklist so that you know that you've paid something, so you don't, say, overpay one and forget to pay another. I hope this makes the chaos a little less hectic and helps you quite a bit. Feel free to share these with other people that you think would find these tips helpful. And remember, take care of yourselves. See you next class.